Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, also Apple Podcasts, and we're on Dash Radio. That's every single weeknight at 7 p.m. That's their Nothing But Net channel. Also, check out 5 Reasons YouTube channel. That's where you get the pregame show before Floor, an hour before every Heat game, and also the postgame show, Post Up 5R, as soon as they hit the buzzer. I'm not even going to tell you about the Dolphins stuff at this point. I know they're going to be angry at me, but I don't want you to be angry at me either. So that's why we're just going to skip right over it. All right. And also 5reasonsports.com. Spell that one out. FIVE reasonsports.com. That's where you get the latest from one of our guests tonight. And I'll introduce him in a second. And also from Brady Hawk, who often joins us, Mateo Mayorga, and the rest of our Heat crew, also our Dolphins crew. Yes, you can read them there as well. Also check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And you can play this every single day, okay? It's not just NFL. It's also NBA. It's MLB. Of course, the World Series still going on for now, at least. We'll see if the Braves pull it off. But you can play prizepicks.com. But make sure you use the code 5, F-I-V-E. I've noticed people signing up. They're not using our code. You don't get the bonus. Sign up with the code 5. Yes, you can play if you're in Florida. It is legal in the state of Florida. People ask me that all the time. Sometimes they don't bother to sign up. Why would we be using them as a sponsor if you couldn't sign up in Florida? So use the code 5, F-I-V-E, play prizepicks.com. If you have any questions about how to do it, you can also always DM me, okay? But the power play, the flex play, 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, 5 players, they got all the props there. So go to prizepicks.com and use the code 5. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Alright, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And we've got a special guest today. You can read his work on 5reasonsports.com. And also, you can catch him on Full Court Press, which I know is going to be coming back here. His name is Marco Romo. He's got the little, what is it? The little Marco Romo and then the underscore under it on Twitter. That's the new Twitter account. And he's going to have a new regular segment with us, which is going to come up a little bit later in the show. But what we're going to talk about today is just Jimmy Butler. I was going through the numbers this morning, and you start to say this, and people start to say, don't do this to him. They're LeBron-like. I mean, I'm going through it. You look at LeBron James's best season, and we're early in the season. I understand that. Okay. The Heat have played 6 games. They've won 5 of them. They have the best net rating in the NBA coming into tonight. They passed Utah with their last win. But here's what Jimmy is putting up this season. Okay. This is through 6 games, 25.3 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 2.8 steals. His shooting splits, 53 from the field, 38 from 3. Now, not a lot of volume there, but still. And then 89% from the line. Just for some context, again, I'm not saying he's LeBron. LeBron's best season with the Miami Heat, I think everyone agrees, was 2012, 2013. That was the 27-game winning streak, and he was absolutely lethal during it. Here's what he averaged. 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. I mean, there's not a lot of separation there. 1.7 steals, less than Jimmy. 56% from the field, a little bit better than Jimmy, but not a whole lot better. 40% from 3, a little bit better. Of course, again, a little bit more volume than Jimmy. And then 75% from the line, which is below Jimmy. I'm not saying he's LeBron, Greg, okay? But I'm saying we haven't seen anybody do this here since LeBron and be in that kind of stratosphere. And it is raising the question here because I saw that they NBA.com put him atop their MVP ladder. Could he be a serious MVP candidate? We sell the shirt on the site, JiMVP, but it was a little bit of a joke before. It's not really a joke right now, Greg.
No, it's not. And I don't think that it's wrong of you to bring up LeBron in this context because it's not that we're necessarily, I mean, to your point, 6 games, so small sample size, but it's the way that he's doing it from a two-way perspective that I think like really mirrors what we saw from Bron. And not many people have came through Miami and had two-way stretches the way we're seeing Jimmy play right now. It looks like I would say Jimmy Butler probably is at that spot where he recognizes he's at the height of his powers likely. And he also has probably the best team around him to maximize those powers. So you can really see him in his mindset change. I'm really surprised as you look around the league, the free throw attempts are down by all these superstars. His free throw attempts are nearly flat to last year. Like I think it's 7.7 this year and it was 8 last year. So that's basically even. Like, I just think that things are going right early. The two-way stuff has been awesome. And he knows that he's probably got his best shot now. And he's showing it in the way that he's playing. And man, he looks fresh.
He does look fresh. And I went through some of the other numbers, and I'll go to you here, Alex, in a second. He's already got 8 dunks this season. He had 39 all of last year. Okay. That tells you his legs are fresh. Some of that he's creating himself in transition with steals, and then he's dunking on the other end. His mid-range percentages actually are a little bit below where they were last year, but he's shooting 75% from 3 feet and in. That would be a career best. Again, lift, ability to finish around the basket. Seems like that was from rest. But also the other thing is he's gone from having, Alex, about 34% of his field goals last year were assisted. This year it's 45%. That's not the percentage he's making. That's the percentage of field goals he's making are assisted by someone. That is the Kyle Lowry effect. That is the ball not being in Jimmy's hands as often. But Alex, what else do you see from him defensively? We know he's able to play center field now because Lowry is obviously better at the point of attack. It allows Jimmy to be Jimmy. But just offensively, why has he been so efficient early?
I love it because I think we all, or maybe at least on this show, underestimated just how much of an offensive impact Lowry would have in that sense of just being able to maximize Jimmy. Like, I think we all understood that he would, take a lot of burden off of Jimmy on both ends of the floor. And shout out to Marco because last night on the Paces and Spaces, we kind of broached the subject a little bit. And I said something that I'm going to take back and adjust a little bit, my take, which was that Jimmy Butler, the way he's being used right now, is pretty much the best wide receiver in the league. And then on the other end, I said on the Spaces that he was the best cornerback in the league, when in reality, it's the best safety. So I wanted to correct that. But really what I'm just trying to say is he's being used in a way now where he's free to do everything he actually wants to do, right? And I'm sure that he loves to play make, but having that burden that he had the past couple of seasons where he was the main guy initiating and having to kind of, make something happen from the top of the key a lot of times and get past a couple defenders to look for free throws. I just think he had it a little bit tougher, right, when it comes to just scoring and scoring efficiency, whereas now, like we talked about in other shows, he's really just getting the ball in the spots that he likes to score it from. He's getting mismatches half the time. He's being used as a roller, as a screener and roller with other guards, whether it be Tyler, Kyle. Now I'm just really waiting on it to see that same exact aspect just with Bam. I would love to see some inverted pick and roll with Bam running some of that along with Jimmy as a screener. But, man, like he's really just getting it easy right now. I think that's why he's so efficient. Like you mentioned, his percentages are great. He has a career high at the moment, obviously small, short sample, but career high true shooting, career high effective field goal percentage. Like he just looks great right now. And I think this is something that's going to sustain itself. Like we'll see where the numbers pan out. I just think this is probably one of the most important layers of Lowry's impact at the moment is just being able to have this layer of, okay, Jimmy is the go-to scorer now.
And you mentioned Lowry's impact, and we can't do this, but if you take out the game that Kyle missed, the numbers are even better. I mean, because in that game, Jimmy sort of had to go back to that other role. Marco, when you look at it, where else can he get to this season? Like, what can he still, now that he's kind of figured out, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of mismatches in the post against guys who are 6'3", simply because, again, the offense is being run correctly. Where can he take his game? I mean, it feels to me like he's not laboring to do this. Like that's the thing. So it feels like there's more upside.
I think the one thing I've noticed is his finishing inside has definitely gone down over the past, couple years. Tyler Hero has hit more shots in the paint than him, which is surprising to me. I think that's the one area where he can improve the most. And I think he will, because he's always been the kind of guy that has these ups and downs throughout a season in terms of finishing inside. I was looking at his numbers earlier, and like they kind of fluctuate month to month, but at the end they kind of even themselves out. So I'm not worried about that. I do love the way they've been using him as a roller, and I think they should keep doing that. Duncan Robinson and him have a great chemistry on the 2-man game. I pointed that out yesterday in the Pacers game. That was their go-to offense without Kyle Lowry. I think they should use that more because Jimmy's such a good he's a good roller. He knows how to read and make a secondary read coming off the screens. He's like a big man in a shooting guard's body. Surprisingly, he's not a shooting guard. That's another area I guess you could point as the 3-pointers, but I'm not worried about that right now. But I'm glad he has so much lift on his jumper. I can definitely see him taking at least 2 threes a game throughout the course of the year. And I'd be happy with that as long as, he keeps up the percentages where they were before he got to Miami, which is, I know that's a thing Heat fans hate because the percentages dipped pretty insurmountably as soon as he got here. So as long as you keep that up, I can't really see how much better he can get. Just the way they use him I'm excited for just what they have in store for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and the threes he's made are rhythm threes. They're
exactly,
and he has to be. Otherwise, it's not going to go down. So let's pivot here a little bit. I mean, let's make an assumption, and that it's a difficult assumption, but let's assume that he can play 75 plus games. Okay, which I don't even know if they want him to play more than that. To be honest, I think they're going to try to spread it out a little bit and make sure he gets his nights off this season because. As a longtime NBA executive texted me last night during the game, we were going back and forth, and he basically said, if they can get Lowry and Jimmy fresh into the playoffs, they're my favorite. And so the Heat know that. The Heat know that they have to keep the 2 of them fresh. So I don't know that Jimmy would play more than, say, 75. Most seasons in the NBA, he hasn't played more than 68, okay, if you look back, which is one of the reasons I've never really been freaked out by the minute counts because he's missed so many games over the course of his career. But let's assume 75, and let's assume there's a level close to where he's played at so far, okay? Let's have the MVP conversation. Can he really get into it? And I think some of this is process of elimination of others, right? Okay, so the first part is, let's start here. Will he separate himself enough from the other players on the Heat, Greg, that he can be the MVP? Because we have seen that with certain guys, it does become challenging. I mean, even in LA, we've talked about this, whether, would LeBron win another MVP when he's playing with AD, if AD's in there, or in Brooklyn, when you thought you had Kyrie and Harden, would Durant be able to win another MVP? If Bam continues to progress and Hero is 6th man of the year and say Spo is in coach of the year consideration, which it looks more legitimate than I thought it was prior to the season, can Jimmy, let's start on the Heat side first. Can he separate himself enough like Giannis does, say, with Milwaukee to enter that conversation?
I think so. And I think it's because there's a couple reasons why. One, there's enough awards to go around. Bam can have the Defensive Player of the Year award. We can give the MVP to Jimmy, and then 6th man of the year to Tyler, and Coach of the Year to Spo, and everyone's happy. But no, I think that the 2-way stuff for a wing, and I know that Bam gets the praise because he can stay in front of Steph one night and then he's down in the post the next night and stuff like that. But the way that Jimmy is scoring combined with his 2-way stuff, when you can get up around 25 points a game, if he can stay in that realm of a robust scoring season and then also be that 2-way player, then it's going to come down to, he won't separate himself that much from the other Heat players, nor will he separate himself statistically from other MVP candidates. Quite frankly, it's going to come down to record. And if this team is like gearing up for a 1 seed kind of situation as they go down the stretch, that's going to be huge in the voters' eyes. I think that's where Miami could become kind of this favorite for the awards, because all of a sudden, even though everyone knew they'd be good, no one thought they would be this good. So I think that's where they could end up having advantages from the awards, whereas usually they're at a disadvantage from them.
All right, so let's look at some of the other guys around the league. I'll start with you here, Marco. So the typical favorites, right, coming into a season. Giannis is a favorite, obviously. He's won it twice. Do you think there would be Giannis fatigue? If Giannis puts up his usual numbers, Milwaukee's a top 2 team in the East. Do you think there would be Giannis fatigue?
I think so. And, we saw that with LeBron James when he was down here in 13-14. He could have easily been an MVP that year. But, the voters really were like, we're going to give it to somebody else. And, Kevin Durant was a good choice at the time. So that happens a lot in these MVP stuff. Like Shaquille O'Neal could have won it so many years. He's a guy that gets compared to Giannis all the time. And he was so dominant. But, the voters, they really want to give these awards. They want to spread them out. They don't want to admit that, but they know they do. And I think, fatigue can be a factor there.
It's a narrative award a lot of times. All right, so Alex, let's look. Do you think there's anything that Jokic could do, considering I feel like he was a reluctant vote by most of the voters last year? It was kind of like, well, there's really nobody else. And again, I don't want to disparage it, but it's not going to go down as like one of the all-time MVP seasons. Do you see any way that Jokic could win back-to-back here?
Yeah, for sure. I think you talk about it being a narrative vote. Like if the Nuggets come out and have a really strong regular season, which by the way, Jokic is also a really hot start. He looks great once again. Like if they have a really strong season, they get a home court seed, and he's just putting up, let's say, better numbers where it just stands out even more. I think there's a chance he could get in there. I just feel like people are going to understand how much of a burden he's carrying without Jamal Murray there, because everybody understands how much Jamal Murray provides for them. So I think that actually may help him. And I think they're the type of team that could survive losing him for the regular season. So maybe. But the thing to me, more than any one specific guy, is that this is a year where I feel like there's so much parity at the moment. Maybe I'm going to be wrong about that in a few months. Maybe it just comes down and it really narrows itself. But I feel like because of that, there's going to be a lot of different guys who have a pretty good case as an MVP candidate. So maybe that's going to be the ultimate reason Jimmy doesn't get in there, right? Like, but if he sustains itself, like himself at the performance he's currently putting on, with the stat line he's currently putting on, the Heat keep winning and just kind of dominating the regular season, he's going to be in there.
Let's go through some of the other names here. And let's do them rapid fire here. What would Luka have to do to enter serious consideration here, Greg?
Top 2 seed in the West.
Okay, which they're not getting there. So I mean, his numbers would have to be outrageous.
Yeah, they're not giving it to the stat stuffing, amazing young player who's on a 7 seed. That's just not happening. Like that's where where I just don't think Luka can get in the conversation, as great as he is.
Durant, can he get in the conversation, Marco? What has to happen? I mean, he's won it before. There's no fatigue now. It's been a little while.
He was a preseason favorite. I'm going to say yes if they win like 60 some plus games and he puts like in crazy numbers.
Especially if Curry does not come back, right?
Yeah, that's the big narrative I see. And if Harden, struggles more, but he's gotten back to his game. So you never know. They might take some votes away because of Harden, but I still think he has a shot.
Alex, how high does Golden State have to get in the West for Curry to be seriously considered? I feel like there's a narrative that would push towards him instead of away from. I think voters want to vote for him. They like him, and they like the story there, right? Alex, you go, and then Greg.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the names I was thinking of just now when we were kind of going through it. And look, like they get a top 3 seed, he's going to be in there. I think he's going to have another dominant season again because he's that good. And then Clay's going to come back. And I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a season where maybe they pop off a little bit. And it's, like I said before, maybe there's not any super teams in the West. God knows it's not the Lakers. So it could be a season where the Warriors come out on top in the regular season. It just depends on how well they hold it together while Clay is gone. But if they're balling with Clay gone, I think that's kind of the foundation for Steph to get into that MVP conversation, that they start really hot.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I liked Steph for this award. And I actually, in our 5 reasons predictions column, picked Steph as the MVP because I had a feeling that it would go in this direction, that they were going to overperform. And there's going to be stretches throughout the year where some of these guys go on these crazy runs, like these 3-week runs where he averages 42 points a game and he's hitting 11 threes every night. And that kind of stuff, I feel like with James Harden back when he was with Houston, it's when he was having those crazy moments throughout a season, like that swung the narrative and the vote, and you could see people start to get on the bandwagon. So I just feel like Steph's more capable of doing that than anybody, than having those robust months. So that's where, to me, he's like the dark horse that would get that award out of the West for me.
Is there a name I'm missing? I mean, it's not going to be Bron this year. I wrote a column about LeBron in 2015 that he would never win another MVP. He wasn't thrilled about the column, but the reason I wrote it was for LeBron. The only way he was ever going to win was if he exceeded exceeded what he'd done previously, which was nearly impossible at that stage, or was on a team that wasn't expected to win, which is almost impossible when you're LeBron. I never thought he would win another, and he likely won't win another. If you look at the history of MVPs too, it's a very small list of guys who won past age 32. Steve Nash did it, but it's a handful of guys. It's not a lot. It does not happen a lot. So I never thought he would win another one, and he's not going to win one this year. But is there anybody else that I'm missing? Like Dame could carry Portland, right? But he's not doing it so far.
You're not buying Washington at 5-1 with Beal leading the way, or Chicago 5-1?
Is fifth on the NBA.com's MVP ladder, which I guess invalidated the Jimmy being first. Montrezl Harrell, seriously, is number 5.
Yeah, that's where this is real small sample size stuff. But I guess I don't expect either of those teams to remain as good as they've played so far. So that's where I still
Can Trey
go back
get in
to
the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, they're 500, so they could easily be a 2 seed in 2 weeks. So that's the funny part about this conversation is it could change very fast.
Alex, I know you've got some Jimmy stats, and then I want to get to some Jimmy narrative stuff.
Yeah, so basically, while perusing through Basketball Reference and some of Jimmy's stuff, again, small sample, always got to go with that disclaimer. But Jimmy's win shares per 48, this is the highest of his career and by far. And what I'm saying right now is it's 0.387, the second highest in his career, 0.255. So it completely blows the water out of everything else. I know it's some nerdy stat, win shares per 48 as described by Basketball Reference, an estimate of the number of wins contributed by a player per 48 minutes, right? And then on top of that, you've got the steals percentage. It's also the highest of his career. It's at 4.0, and the closest was last season at 3.1. And then other than that, it's hanging around the 2s for the rest of his career. So, just a couple of different ways where, like I said, Jimmy's being optimized and kind of getting to do everything he wants just at a higher level.
I think the issues that Jimmy's going to have from a narrative perspective, other than the fact that I think we agree the national media doesn't love to look at Miami. But I think a couple things. One, a lot of people in the national media didn't like the move of Jimmy to Miami, which I think hurts because they don't want to admit that they were wrong, particularly about him and the way that he interacts with the team. And so I think that becomes a little bit of a challenge there. I also don't know that Jimmy would go for it. I feel like that's a big thing here. Like LeBron went for it. Like LeBron was upset when he didn't get it. LeBron was upset at those of us who didn't vote for him. He knew who voted for him, who didn't. Jimmy couldn't give a damn. He does not care. Okay. And that's not for show. That's the people around him tell you that he does not care. It doesn't matter to him. And so I just think if you're looking like 2-3 weeks left in the regular season and it's a tight MVP race and Steph Curry's scoring 45 a night for Golden State, carrying them to a 4 seed, and you're like, okay, so, and Jimmy's going to take a night off. Like, he's not going to push in that direction. I think that hurts him. I also don't know that Miami would really push for him for a few reasons. And one of them is the first thing, they don't do that a lot. But also, they've got a lot of other guys that they want to push, like Bam. I think they're going to get out in front of it with Bam for Defensive Player of the Year this year because I think they did a poor job of that last year, to be honest. And Hero and others, I don't know that I don't know that Jimmy's going to have the tailwind to push him across the end line. But I do think he could be top 5. I also think people who don't think Jimmy Butler is a top 10 player are going to have a hard time voting for him to be MVP. And most NBA people don't think he's a top 10 player. They put him in that 11 to 15 category. So those are all reasons that I don't think it will happen. But the very fact that we're having this conversation and we're able to put Jimmy Butler's line next to LeBron James's line from LeBron James's best ever season gives you an indication of where they're at. All right, when we come back, we're going to introduce a new segment here with our friend Marco, and it is sponsored by, as is this episode, Everything Trade Shows. Because if you're roaming the country, look at that. If you're roaming the country looking to go to trade shows, you will likely see the work of Everything Trade Shows there. And if you live here in Fort Lauderdale, the office is here, so you might as well just stop in. Go to everythingtradeshows.com. everythingtradeshows.com. They're based right here off of Las Olas, but they service all 50 states. Trade shows are back everywhere. They're all over the place. Okay. It's like almost like COVID never happened. Logistics, booth, graphics, furniture, flooring. They handle everything, including some tips to get you noticed. They'll teach you the difference between renting and buying. Again, they're based right here in Lauderdale, but they can service all 50 states. So schedule a free consultation and make sure you mention 5 reasons to get a free booth rendering. Mention 5 reasons, you get a free booth rendering. In addition to the consultation, they'll show exactly what it's going to look like. Here's the phone number. Reach out, say, you know, Chris, saying 5 reasons, whatever it is you want to say, they'll take care of you there. Take care of you anyway, but even better care if you mention 5 reasons. 954-791-8882, 954-791-8882. That's everythingtradeshows.com. And now a new segment.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your weekly NBA update with none other than 5 Reasons sports writer and paramour extraordinaire, Marco Romo. Let's Marco roam around the league, shall we? Take it away, Marco.
All right, we are back with Marco. I don't even know how we want to do this, Marco. How do we want to do this? I'm going to set you up. Or are you going to give us a speech? How are we handling this?
All right. I guess I'll set it up first. What I'm going to do is pretty much update you guys on what's going around the league and bounce some stuff off of you guys. You guys can ask me questions about any team or any thing, any news kind of thing you guys want to talk about, or I can just start us off. This week, I'm just going to start us off by talking about the state of the league so far. And I think it's on everybody's mind, the physicality, the fouls, everything. I saw recently the offensive ratings are at worst they've been since, I think, 2003. I don't know, fact check me on that, but I saw something. It was something crazy like that. And Miami, we just talked about Miami. Their offense looked a little brutal after the first week. Their defense looked awesome, but their offense still somehow ended up 4th in the league right now in terms of offensive rating, which tells you just how bad offense has been this year. It's been a topic of discussion everywhere I've been. A lot of NBA chats I've been in, debates. Mike Prada did a good thread about this, about how there's been a lot of hand checking allowed this year, and that's not exactly a good thing. I love the physicality at the rim and all the physicality that let him get away, at times, but the hand checking, I don't want to see us revert back to that sort of basketball. I think there's been a big overcorrection around the league. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but there's been a big overcorrection, especially at guys going into the rim. And I feel like James Harden had somewhat of a point. It's just that coming from his mouth, it probably was a little rough for people to hear. But I think he had a point that there's been some calls that have been missed. I don't know if it's going to get corrected in the middle of the season. I feel like there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to come back to where they were. I think offenses are going to find their way, but it's like 90s ball out there, and some people love it, but there's also a little bit give and take here. I don't know if what you guys have noticed so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, my inclination is to like it, but maybe that's my age, I guess. I
have the same inclination, and I'm closer to your age than these other cats. So
yeah,
we're probably
I like it, and I think Heat fans should like it because I think it plays into the style that they want. I think it's a strongest survive type style. I'm with you a little bit on the hand checking. I don't love that much, but at the same time, we talk about overcorrecting, but I mean, it had gone so far the other direction that, I mean, you couldn't, again, it's like the NFL where you can't touch anybody and the quarterbacks are throwing for 350 unless you have 2 as offensive line. It went too far that direction. I understand that people like scoring. I understand that people like free flowing offense. And they want stars to be stars. And in a lot of ways, by freeing them, what David Stern and then Silver did with the rules changes, made bigger stars out of certain guys. Okay. Particularly smaller players. Okay. Who have been able to really thrive. The Trae Youngs of the world. Okay. Kind of I guess you would call them the descendants of Allen Iverson, I guess. And so I get, and Dwayne to a certain extent. But I think it had gone too far. And I think that this is going to force guys to get better offensively and to figure out counters to this. And so I do think I'm with you, Mark. I think it will correct a little bit by the end of the regular season. I think there's always an overemphasis early when there are new role changes.
Setting
and I think it will come, and then it will come back a little bit. It will come back. But in the meantime, I think some of these offensive players will get better because they will be, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I just don't want to hear them whine about it. That's all. I mean, my feelings about Harden, but I just don't, I want them to adjust. Jimmy Butler's adjusting. Like Greg mentioned, his free throw attempts are about where they were before. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for the guys whose free throw attempts have been cut in half. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to mention, like, Dame is one of the guys I've noticed it with. Like, everyone talks about James Harden because I think the flailing makes it so obvious that you're seeing the impact. But Dame's free throws, like the last few years, he's been like at 7.5 free throws, 8 free throws almost consistently. He is at 4 free throws a game. He's shooting 26% from 3. Like, to me, I guess if we're going to roam around the NBA, Marco, I'll ask you this. Do you think Dame is struggling from the change in officiating, or does his ass just not want to be in Portland anymore?
I was literally just watching Portland before we started this. They played Charlotte tonight. His jumper just looks off. I think there was some reports about there being injury this offseason that still might be lingering throughout this year. And I can see that because his jumper, I think he was 1 for 7 at one point tonight from 3. It's just been off. And a lot of that, he's been kind of afraid to go inside as much this year. He still wants to, I think he doesn't look disengaged out there at all. The team around him is the same as last year, pretty much, outside of Larry Nance Jr. Teams have gotten better. They have kind of just plateaued. I think it's just a matter of Dame not hitting his shots, and also he's kind of, I don't want to say just afraid to be physical, but it kind of looks that way from what I've seen. I think he'll probably get better, as season goes along. Maybe the injury heals up a little better, but I think he'll be fine. The foul thing, I do want to give Greg credit on noticing that, because I follow a lot of people in Portland. They call them the Grift King at times. There's they say Dame time, and there's also Grift time. It's one of the funniest things I see on Twitter, because whenever he wants a foul, he gets it, or he used to get it. And that's been a problem for him, is he hasn't been able to get those calls to, kind of settle himself in. And I think that's kind of really hurt his game to an extent.
Alex, any thoughts before we move to the next topic?
I'm interested to see how this plays out. So far, I'm kind of with you guys. I lean towards liking it. I'm interested to see, like, if some of the stuff we've seen with trends with star players like Marco's talking about just continues to play out like it has throughout the season. And I know you mentioned that you think it's gonna kind of go back a little bit. It's not gonna stay on so far on this end of the spectrum. I'm not as sure, because I feel like the referees have probably been wanting to do stuff like this. I've probably been waiting for these changes, right? Because it just I feel like it makes their job so much easier when things are kind of outlined specifically on and outlawed specifically as far as what can and can't be done on the court. So I don't know. I'm interested. I love physical basketball, so I'm kind of with it for now. I'm just not sure exactly how it plays out. I'm a little bit skeptical that it stays this physical.
Marco, you got one more topic for us?
All right, I'm gonna give you guys. This is the thing I want to do every week, is teams that kind of impressed me, or just that have caught my eye for the week. And I think I'll give you guys 3 teams, and I'll see which team you guys want to jump on first. I have one team. Weirdly enough, Greg mentioned them, the Washington Wizards, who I think people were a little too low on them coming into the year. I think when you have that many average NBA players, your floor is going to be really high. Your ceiling may not be that all that high, but your floor, you're going to be at least a 500 team. And I saw way too many people pick them to be outside of the play-in, which was, I think, crazy to me. I don't know what you guys had them as, but I definitely had them at least as a 7 seed, because I saw just how many teams in the league have so many guys that just can't play. The Wizards have a lot of guys that you can just play night in and night out, and a lot of defensive guys that the Lakers probably wish they had right now. But we won't get into that. Another team, the Bulls. I wasn't a believer in their start this year. But I was impressed. I watched their game against Utah. I watched a couple of their other games, the Raptors game where they almost collapsed. But the thing I've been impressed with is their defense. I thought the offense would come a lot easier than their defense, but it's really been their defense that's held them up so far. I think the loss of Patrick Williams really hurts them. I really hate that. Patrick's like one of my favorite young guys in the league. I love watching him play on defense because people compare him to Kawhi on the defensive end. I think that's more of a body type thing, but he has some great instincts, and I think they'll miss him a lot. But I find them really, really fun to watch on that end, which was surprising to me. Vucevic has really struggled shooting, so I think he'll get back there when the season ends. Though I think he's shooting less than 20% from three so far, but he'll be better as the season goes along. And the last team is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I kind of had as a sleeper pick to at least make the play-in as like a 10 spot team. And this year they kind of proven me right, which I didn't even expect because I thought they were going to barely win 20 games realistically. I hope they would be the 10 seed, but Evan Mobley, he's like a young Anthony Davis, and I don't think that's hyperbole at all when you watch how he affects games and how he can break offenses. And the fact that they're running three bigs, talk about 90s ball. They're playing 3 7-footers in their front court, and it's working. They're actually gotten Larry Markkinen to play defense, which I think makes Bulls fans mad. But I mean, it's great to see that Bickerstaff has like gotten this much out of their team so far. And Ricky Rubio is putting up like insane numbers. He's always been a solid player, but he's actually looking to shoot more this year, and he's actually hitting some of those shots. I don't know. Those are 3 teams that have really impressed me. I don't know which 3 you guys want to jump on here.
Well, all right, let's start here. I mean, the first, I mean, Chicago is a team I think that has the most relevance because I still, they have the highest ceiling, I think, of all the teams that you've mentioned there. And, you know, my thing on Chicago is, and the reason I thought that they would be competitive is that Billy can coach defense. I mean, he typically has. He's done it at every level. I mean, those Oklahoma City teams that overachieved with him, they defended. I mean, you know, even without necessarily great defenders on them. So I have respect for him for what he can do on that end. To me, the pieces are not perfect fits, you know, and I think there's going to be some questions as they kind of get deeper into things because DeRozan's always been a poor postseason player. And who are they going to kind of lean towards there? I mean, Vucevic doesn't have much postseason experience at all. I mean, he's never really gotten a whole lot of opportunities with Orlando. So is Levine, who is your go-to guy? Who are they going to decide they're going to go to? And also, is Lonzo going to be really handed the rock to do some things instead of just being a spot-up shooter, which is kind of what he turned into? But they have the highest ceiling of the 3. To me, a successful season for Cleveland would be 32 wins. I think they, you know, something along those lines. No, I'm not saying that because I hate the city. Is all I do. But I'm friendly with the general manager, so it's not like I'm not like I'm rooting against them. But I'm just saying, like, I just think to me that's a successful ceiling for them. I mean, if they got to 32 wins with having now, you know, a core young big to build around, I think that's positive. I don't see them as a play-in team. Washington's weird. I know what you're saying, Marco. Like, you have a certain amount of average players, you know, and we saw that with the Heat. Like, remember that little stretch where Josh Richardson was their best player? You had like a bunch of B- guys on the team. You can be competitive for that period of time, but you are capped out. And I also don't think, unless Bradley Beal is going to decide to defend a day in his life, the rest of, you know, I don't know how far they can go when their best player doesn't defend anymore. So play in, maybe. I think they're a little bit better than Cleveland. But I think when we start to talk about play-in teams, there's not a whole lot of teams in the East you can eliminate. I mean, Detroit and Orlando is pretty much it. So I don't know necessarily that they get there, but I'll let Greg or Alex weigh in on the 3.
No, I was just going to say that I had Wes Unseld Jr. as the first head coach fired this year, so I am not buying Washington.
He's a Johns Hopkins alum. I covered him in college because so I'm biased. He's the best player I've ever seen at Johns Hopkins, Division III. You know, so I'm biased. I'm a Wes Unseld fan, but yes, I agree with you. I didn't expect it to work out very well. Anyway,
and they're playing as good as they are, and Bradley Beal's not shooting well from 3. I think he's in the 20. I mean, Marco mentioned someone shooting 20%. I think also Bradley Beal is in that area. Chicago can't rebound. I think they're last in the league in rebounding. They got to correct that. And like Vucevic has always been a really big time rebounder. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, especially with Patrick Williams out. I think you bring up good teams. I refuse to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, so I'll let Alex talk about them.
Alex, go ahead.
Wow.
On these three.
Now I got to talk about the Cavs. I really wanted to talk about the Wizards and the Bulls more than the Cavs, to be honest. Although I like Mobley, there's not much more I can say than what Marco already said, that he's just super damn impressive and kind of shows some of those things Bam has on defense as far as being able to, be mobile, be in multiple coverages this early on in his career, do it super long. Anyways, let's get to the good stuff. The Wizards, man, like, they're 5-1. I'm surprised. I got to say, I agree with Marco that they got a lot of like pretty good players, right? A lot of rotation players, and they're pretty deep with them. And that's not something I can usually say about the Washington Wizards, right? So having that depth along with Beal and Dinwiddie at the top, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to be in that play-in area. I don't really disagree with anything you guys said there. I just think they're going to be a more fun team to watch in general than they have been over the past few years. So, good for Bradley Beal to get some sort of payoff there. I guess because that's what he wants, because it's not going to be playoff success. And I think he knows that as far as the Washington Wizards. Now, the Bulls, man, they're interesting. The fact that they're second to last in rebound percentage is really interesting. Like you said, because Vucevic has always been such a great rebounder. I wonder if they start Alize Johnson at the 4 as a result, because I feel like that's like the one thing he really brings when it comes to, like being in the NBA is rebounding, some decent defense.
You're right.
I don't know, because now that Patrick Williams is out for the season, it's either him or Derrick Jones Jr. if they're going to go with one of their traditional 4s on the roster. So we'll see. But the Bulls, it's interesting to me because, like you said, Ethan, Billy Donovan has always been a good defensive coach, and he always coaches up kind of even like what you would expect from the personnel, similar to what Spo does, I feel. And the Bulls right now are 6th in defensive rating and 10th in offensive rating. What you probably would think that would be inverted, if anything, right? So I like what they have there. I think Levine is clearly the go-to guy. I think he is a special type of scorer, and the fact that they've given him other weapons to take the burden off is great. For them, you got Vucevic there who can take pressure off. I think you have him there in the high post, and it just makes life easier for DeRozan and Levine to attack. I don't know. I like Lonzo and Caruso's point of attack defense. I think they're a pretty good team, just missing maybe 1 or 2 extra rotation players. I just don't know how far they go in the playoffs. I think this is one of the more fun teams to watch this season, though.
Well, we'll see too, because buyouts may decide some of it. Although buyouts never decide anything. I always say that, and it's like, and then I'm like, none of them end up where. I mean, where's Troy Murphy, right? Mike Bibby.
Yeah, just the Heat's buyouts work out.
Well, not Mike.
That is, yeah.
Thad Young is that's the
one.
guy. Well, he would be a nice fit with the Heat. We'll see. Marco, thank you. We will do more of this. Next time. We will make Alex talk about the Cavaliers every single week. You can follow him at Marco Romo _ sponsored by everythingtradeshows.com. Reach out to them. prizepicks.com. Make sure you're using that code FIV. And of course, I always mention this, manscaped.com. If you want any of their grooming or cologne or any of their other products, go to 5RSN. That's where you can find it. And I will end the episode this way. Marco, thank you for joining us. Your balls in your body will thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.